We don't normally talk about German cars on this program, but here's a really special example, a W126 Mercedes, which admittedly holds a special place in my heart as well as Mark's. It's really the last of the classic German-styled Mercedes, and it was produced from 1979 to 1991 in coupe and sedan forms. Personally, the coupe is one of my absolute all-time favorite designs. Unfortunately, they've become super expensive to procure, and they're also expensive to own, as upkeep on these vehicles is not cheap. In any case, listen as we walk around one of these W126 Mercedes, and Mark talks about the design history.
Because I'm German, right? Is that what you said? We have to talk about the 126 Mercedes, the S-Class from the 80s?
This is kind of the last of the very Germanic-looking Mercedes.
Yes. This was a tremendously important vehicle in its day. Absolutely groundbreaking for many reasons, and I think this is the embodiment of how Mercedes found its stride globally. They were coming up in the 60s and 70s, but this car was really the gold standard for luxury cars, both in the technology and I think in the aesthetics as well. This car came out in Germany in 1979. This is an earlier model, and you can identify the earlier models by the ridged lower body side cladding. In the mid-1980s, that was smoothed out, and there were some other modifications made, but essentially that car was built from 1979 to 1991, really, practically unchanged with the exception of a few cosmetic updates and, of course, ever-evolving technology. This was the antithesis of what Detroit was doing, and it was absolutely becoming the gold standard globally for a luxury car. Technology drove everything, the engineering drove everything. Mercedes-Benz made it a point that they didn't style cars, they engineered cars, and then the designers refined the engineered result in a tasteful and restrained manner to give it a long-lasting, timeless appeal, and I think this car succeeded triumphantly at that.
But boy, the coupe of these is just a fabulous
The coupe is one of my favorite cars of all time. It's still a hardtop. You and I were both very anti-B-pillar people.
With the belt presenter.
With the belt presenter, how very elegant, yes. Too bad there's not one of those here today. But this car was super significant because it really did achieve the Mercedes-Benz goals that they had set out. And it's still, as you were mentioning earlier, a good example of the old school of Mercedes-Benz approach. Safety, efficiency, long-term durability, all those factors were the main driving forces of its design. And it's interesting to see the surfacing on these cars. So for instance, these creases and these breaks in the surface don't have to be there. But in terms of how they design the surfaces, everything here is designed to give you a feeling, visually, a feeling of extreme solidity and strength. So Mercedes was very, very conscious of how and where they placed body side creases and breaks in the surface, and they always placed them in such a way that they conveyed the core values of the car, which is safety and solidity. Even when you come down to details like, the divider strip between the window that drops and the quarter window in the door.
Which actually enables the window to drop all the way.
Correct. I mean, you have
GM always had the divider, but the window went halfway down.
Yeah. This divider in a four-door vehicle usually is placed so that you can get enough space, have enough space for the moving part of the glass to be parked in the door when it's going up and down, so the window can go all the way down. That's the only reason for this thing, really. And but it's a very, very important.
GM didn't always adhere to that, though.
They didn't always adhere to that. That's a whole other story. That's a different video. But I mean, everything here has these little touches that Mercedes-Benz was trying to visually communicate the technology behind it. The ridges and the tail lamps have an aerodynamic purpose because the road film from contamination, when you have spray in the wake, it will coat the top surfaces, but it will not tend to go into these recessed ridges. So that will keep the tail lamps brighter in inclement weather. When you're driving on the Autobahn at 130 miles an hour with the wake spray behind you, it will keep your stoplight and your tail lamp brighter for a longer period of time. And a lot of viewers may know this, but European cars pretty early on in the 70s or 60s, 70s already introduced wipers for the headlamps because It's pretty important in the rainy,
Sure.
drizzly weather of Germany and Central Europe when you're driving high speed on the Autobahn, you know, on a long trip. You don't want to stop every 10 minutes to wipe the headlamp or the tail lamp. So these are all technical features to enable high-speed driving under inclement weather conditions.
It also has this modern kind of ridge here on the
Well,
roof.
this car was one of the innovators. This was really just a water management system. It's also strengthening the roof
Oh, this
panel.
is the rain cutter?
Yes, one of the things that Mercedes always did was, if you look at this here, they created a deliberate bladed trough or channel to keep water away from the side window. It would take the rainwater up this channel and shoot it over the roof instead of letting the spray go to the side. And the mirror is shaped to deflect the air outwards so that you get a cleaner area and less film deposit here in inclement weather. So again, this costs you some points for CD. This is actually a drag inducer, but Mercedes-Benz, even though they went aerodynamically quite efficient with this car, they were trading off some negative points here with the drag this induces for the safety, with the water management that it
This is a
creates.
fantastic looking car in silver. You know,
Yeah,
I mean, this
it
car
was
really does
really
look.
designed for it.
Do you think GM picked up on these ridges, like on the 80s era Seville
I'm
and things like that?
quite sure that anything Mercedes did in the 70s and 80s was picked up as a fashion cue by other automakers, because the lifestyle of the rich and famous, as the program, and you know, people.
Was that your Robin Leach impression
Yeah, it's
there?
pretty bad, isn't it? But I mean, Robin Leach doesn't deserve a good impression. So anyway, that program was ridiculous. But
I don't even know if he's still alive. Is he?
that's again another video. But people in Beverly Hills and in Florida and New York, they bought these cars.
And
that
J.R.
was-
Ewing.
And J.R. Ewing, one of our favorites, right? One of our favorite TV shows. J.R. Ewing famously drove a green Mercedes S-Class.
Ewing 3.
Ewing 3. It was
Ewing 1 was the Mark
it was a
V.
dark green one in the pilot, in the miniseries,
Yes,
and then
yeah.
they switched to a light metallic green, both the W116 and W126 series. So
Great looking wheel too.
yeah, this was the classic Mercedes alloy. They kept that. They had it on the previous generation, and they kept it into this. And then with a mid-1980s facelift, they changed to a more contemporary design. But this was a very, very classic design for Mercedes-Benz.
Great. Well, hopefully you enjoyed this unique review of a Mercedes W126 model. If you did, be sure to put a comment in the comments section so that Mark and I know if you like reviews of some foreign vehicles as well as the typical domestics that we look at. And in general, if you enjoyed this review, like, comment, and subscribe, and hit the super thanks button, which is the heart-shaped icon with the $sign in it at the bottom right of your video browser. Until next time, be sure to check out the video thumbnails at bottom left and right for some suggestions for you. Until next time, thanks again for watching, and take care.